Tracy here. For today's video, I'm talking about my expectations and experiences with MG treatment. What were my expectations for MG treatment? Well, I expected to get better. I thought I would finally feel better now that they found out what was wrong with me, and that I would get the treatment and go back to living my life. But that's not what happened exactly. My hopes were that I would get my functioning back, I wouldn't be bedridden, I would get my strength back, I'd be able to do things and be active again like I had been before. My treatments were probably not, they didn't follow the typical course that many people's treatments would. I already had chronic Lyme disease when I was diagnosed with Myasthenia Gravis, and it's pretty much believed that having a long-term infection is what led to me getting autoimmune disease and Myasthenia Gravis. Along with the chronic Lyme, I had been diagnosed with small fiber neuropathy, as I had numbness and tingling and loss of feeling in my hands and feet. So I had started IVIG before I was diagnosed with Myasthenia Gravis, which is pretty unusual. One of the interesting things is I can remember riding home from my first or second IVIG treatment and noticing how crisp and clear everything looked out the car window. And I wondered why that was. It just seemed bizarre, but wonderful that I could see so much better. I could see things clearly. Another thing I noticed was I hadn't been able to really move my hands into a fist. I guess they were just too weak. But if I thought they were maybe stiff or I had arthritis or something, but after that IVIG treatment, I could move my hands normally again. I'd been on the IVIG for probably 6 months when I was diagnosed with Myasthenia Gravis. And I'm not going to say that it really, I didn't know I had MG, but those are the only two things I really remember helping with at first. I was on IVIG for 5 years. Because of the chronic Lyme disease, I could not take the immunosuppressants that most people take. I couldn't take Imurin or Cellcept or prednisone because I could not suppress my immune system to a point where the Lyme would come raging back. It was finally under some control when I just sort of shifted gears and went from being really sick with that to really sick with Myasthenia Gravis. So I was already on the IVIG, as I said, and my neurologist, who happened to be my Lyme doctor and was the one who diagnosed me with Myasthenia Gravis, felt that that would be the treatment for the MG, that I would stay on IVIG. And he asked me to see a neuromuscular doctor, and I did, and he agreed that I couldn't take those medications, but just needed to have IVIG as treatment and Mestinon, which helped a lot as well. I was on IVIG for about 5 years, and I got it for 2 days in a row every 2 weeks for years, and then spaced it out to every 3 weeks for maybe the last couple of years. It made me extremely ill. I was very, very sick from it. I got aseptic meningitis many, many times. Ended up in the hospital, ended up, in terrible pain. The first time I got IVIG, I got a severe case of it. And then they spaced out the IVIG a little bit more and lowered the dose and slowed it down. But every time I got it, it made me really, really ill. I would pretty much be in bed for about a week with pain and fatigue and sleeping and nauseous and just really sick. But, I didn't have any choice. My life depended on the treatment, so I had to get it anyway, no matter how sick it made me. It was rough, but I didn't think about that part. I just thought about putting one foot in front of the other and doing what I had to do to stay alive. Sometimes I would feel somewhat better after the IVIG. I might get a week of functioning where I could get up and do some things and have some good days. Sometimes not so much, but it helped. It helped with symptoms to some degree. So when I got it every 2 weeks, it was basically a week of being sick from the IVIG and then maybe a week of feeling not as bad as normal. I wasn't out shopping. I didn't go in stores for years. I didn't drive for years, but I could get out of bed and maybe do a few things. After about 5 years, though, my doctor sort of sat me down and said, we just don't think this is working for you as well as it should be. And, Rituxan was becoming used, was being used more often, and my doctor wanted to switch me to Rituxan. So I agreed, and I started Rituxan, and I got that every 8 weeks for 4 years. It made me horribly ill, just like the IVIG. In fact, I was in a Rituxan Facebook group, and I think there's only one other person in the group that got as sick as I did from Rituxan. I got severe pain all over. It would start about when I got home. After a couple of years, they started giving me IV Dilaudid before I left the cancer center, and that actually helped a bit. But, I just had pain everywhere. I would be crying, in pain, nauseous. Actually, the whole time I was on Rituxan, I had to take chemo nausea meds because the nausea was so severe. That was the only way to even control it at all, and I just lived with nausea for 4 whole years. Lost about half my hair in the beginning, but it did come back. I just seemed to always get a lot of the rare symptoms. The nausea hit me about 20 minutes into the first infusion, like a brick wall. It was awful. I just had so many side effects from the Rituxan. I got aseptic meningitis a few times even from that. But at least now it was only every 8 weeks instead of every 2 or 3 weeks. But I would be down for the count for about 2 weeks. The first 4 days, like clockwork, I would sleep. Barely wake up at all. Wake up, eat, drink, go right back to sleep. And then about day 5, I'd start to be able to maybe be awake for a few hours in the afternoon and, feel a little bit better. But I learned that after about a week, I might be able to get out of bed, but if I got up and did stuff, I'd just be right back where I was. So I had to stay in bed the whole second week, or I would have severe, sort of a rebound back to not feeling well. What I liked about Rituxan was it helped my breathing right away. I've been hospitalized a couple of times in crisis, and just was so used to being short of breath so much. When I first started Rituxan and they took away the IVIG, I was in really bad shape for months without the IVIG, except that my breathing got better, or it was stable. That was the only thing. Other than that, I was in bed, I was weak, I couldn't walk, I was choking so much. I was constantly choking. I developed a constant wheeze from aspirating. I kept asking them to give me IVIG, but they wouldn't. They said it would compromise my immune system too much. So I went through, I think it was about 8 months of being so much sicker than I had been, and my breathing was better, but the muscular part was better, but I was wheezing and coughing all the time from aspirating with the swallowing issues. Over time, it seemed like the Rituxan was working a little bit more. One of the things I really struggle with is because I didn't seem to fit the mold or the textbook, I wasn't believed a lot of the time. The Rituxan was supposed to work much faster. I didn't really feel a noticeable difference for about 1.5 years. At the 1.5 year point, I got like a 6-month period where I was much better than I'd been in over a decade, or about a decade. I didn't think I would go backwards again, but it only lasted for 6 months, and I wasn't functioning like a normal person, but it was much better. And then I got Rituxan one day and just didn't bounce back. And I think that was 1.5 years in. And then over time, I was able to stretch it out to every 12 weeks. We tried to go to every 4 months, but my choking got so much worse after the 3rd month without it, that we had to back it up to every 3 months. And then one day, after 4 years, I got it, and I just had all these things happen after that. I was starting to get a lot of infections and things at this point from being on Rituxan for, I think, 3 years then. So I got pneumonia, I got bronchitis, I kept getting sick. And I would have to delay the Rituxan treatment because I was too sick. And my mother-in-law died, I had to go to California. I just went through a lot and ended up not getting it for 6 months, which was bizarre. But the whole 6 months, despite being really ill with infections and things, my MG felt pretty stable. It was really shocking because I would have thought it would be horrible without the Rituxan and with all these infections. but I felt better MG-wise than I had in a long time. So after going 6 months without it, which was kind of it was a total accident, but it probably would have happened anyway, because I would have noticed my symptoms were better and we would have tried to stretch it out. But after that, we decided to try another 6 months. And I never thought I'd make it, but I did. I made it another 6 months, and then I got Rituxan again. And that was the end of it. I didn't get it after that. Now, it's not like I went back to a normal person during those, that year. But I was functioning better than I had been. And I was starting to do things slowly that I hadn't done in a long time. I haven't gotten Rituxan now in almost 2 years. Next month will make 2 years. And I've been feeling much better since it took 4 years for Rituxan to work for me, basically. But after 4 years, it seemed to kick in, and I started feeling better and better. And now I'm driving again, which I hadn't done for so long. I can drive myself places. I can even take myself to the doctor. I can go in stores and things and do things around the house that I could never do before. So the Rituxan worked. It took 4 years, which the problem is, again, everyone would say to me, like neurologists would say, that's not possible. It wouldn't take that long. And I don't know, it just went through a lot with doctors not believing stuff, but that's what happened with me. I really couldn't fake getting better, I don't think. So what I didn't like about the treatments were the side effects, which were very, very severe for me, but I dealt with them. The most meaningful change in my life from being on Rituxan is being available to my family. I have a 9-month-old granddaughter, my first grandchild, and it's absolutely amazing that I can drive to their house, they live a half-hour away, and babysit her. My son and daughter-in-law are both firefighters and paramedics, and they're also in the National Guard, so they're also medics in the Army, and they need me. I could have never, ever been able to do this before. I couldn't have been there for them. I couldn't have been a grandma, and I mean, thank God every single day that the Rituxan brought me to where I am. I still have symptoms. I'm not free and clear of them. I have them every day, but I can live with them, and I can drive, I can pick up my granddaughter, I can completely take care of her. I may end up having a day in bed after taking care of her or being really active. That still, of course, happens, but I bounce back, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful that I'm not on the treatment anymore, because I don't have to go through being so sick anymore. It got to the point where I would dread knowing that I had Rituxan the next day, because it was the start of like a two-week period of darkness and pain. But I'm so grateful for it, and I would go through it again. I mean, I hope that I don't have to ever do it again. I know lots of times people do relapse, and I'm not in remission really, because I still have lots of symptoms, but like I said, they're manageable. I can live with them. I have great days, and then I have days that I have to rest in bed, and I still have problems with vision and weakness and all that, but my breathing's good and my swallowing's good, and those are the two most important things, because that keeps me going. I guess that's it for today. Thank you.